Let's talk about niches that you should avoid in 2025 in high-ticket dropshipping. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. In today's video, I'm going to give you 10 niches that you should avoid like the plague in 2025 and beyond in high-ticket dropshipping due to saturation, and that's really the main reason. Saturation, poor margins, those are really the two biggest factors. Before we get into it, I would like to remind everybody, if you are not already a member of my program and you are interested or planning on starting a high-ticket dropshipping business, I'll put the link in the description below. It is a step-by-step process of how to build a high-ticket dropshipping program based on my experience as a high-ticket dropshipper. I am currently building the second version of the course. The first version is what's in the link below. If you buy the current course at the current price, you will be automatically grandfathered into the new version of the course, which will be quite a bit more expensive than what it's currently at. So if you're interested, get in now, save some money, and I'm looking forward to working with you. But let's chat about niches to avoid in 2025. We're just going to get right into it. I'm going to reference my notes here so I don't leave any off of the list. The first that we got is any furniture. So anything to do with home furniture, whether it's indoor, outdoor, couches, sofas, standing desks, that's one that I get all the time. Like, what do you think about this niche, standing desks? Like, nobody's ever thought of that. Well, thing is, everyone's thought of that now because the pandemic happened and everybody worked from home for 2 years, and now Wayfair, along with every other small business under the sun, wants to advertise desks and standing desks online. So when it comes to furniture, not only are you just competing with a ton of businesses, so many different businesses, and you're just going to get blown out of the water by companies like Wayfair, for example, or Walmart. Not only that, but the keywords are very difficult to show up for. You're going to show up for a lot of kind of unrelated keywords, and obviously you can filter out negative keywords in your Google ads. But it's hard to differentiate just a standing desk from like any other desk, just as an example. So you're going to get a lot of pretty irrelevant traffic, not as high converting as a lot of other niches that you might find. And, you know, for some furniture, the price point's there, but long story short, the juice is not worth the squeeze when it comes to furniture. So that's number one on the list. Number two on the list is health and wellness. Anything to do with health and wellness. The first one that comes to mind is saunas, and then saunas obviously leads us into things like cold plunges, sensory deprivation tanks, and then it leads us into things like fitness equipment. The reality is, guys, this is super common stuff. It's high ticket, but the goal of high ticket is to really think outside the box and not just find something that costs, you know, $1,500 plus that you can carry on your website, partner with a manufacturer, list on your website, and advertise and sell. But you want to choose something that almost nobody else has thought of, that has a market. And this is easier said than done, but you know, this is something that I do with my students that I've done over the last 5 years on a daily basis. So again, I'm just going to plug my program real quick, especially in the course 2.0, we go very deep into niche research and selection. So health and wellness, anything to do with it, avoid it like the plague. You're going to lose a lot of money if you try to go into it. Outdoor patio stuff. This kind of goes along with the home furniture. So like fire pits, patio furniture, that kind of stuff. Speaking from experience, I've sold it before. The margins aren't great and it's really competitive. So those are two really kind of knocks on it, and that make it really hard to justify spending any advertising dollars on it. The only real way to try and make it in that space, in my opinion, is SEO, to try and drive organic traffic over time. Because you're not going to be profitable if you try to run ads on them. And even if you try to rank in SEO, it's like, look at the companies that you're going up against. You're going up against Wayfair, Walmart, Amazon, Target. It's like, you're never going to compete with their domain authorities. So, in my opinion, your efforts are much better spent elsewhere in a completely different niche where you don't even have to fight that uphill battle. Kitchen appliances. uh, anything kitchen appliance related. So oven ranges, ovens, pizza ovens, stoves, refrigerators, freezers, commercial refrigerators, commercial freezers, prepping tables, all this stuff. Very competitive. It's very hard to get suppliers in this space. Just speaking from experience, you're almost going to have to, in almost every situation, you're going to have to work through a third party distributor in this space. Manufacturers tend to prefer selling only to distributors that have the capacity to service and like physically house this inventory in their facilities. So you might find like one or two manufacturers that are okay with you just drop shipping directly from their manufacturing facility in the kitchen appliance space, but those are very few and far between. There's nothing wrong with working through a distributor. In fact, there are a lot of positives to it because oftentimes if you get in the door with a good distributor with good margins, especially, you're going to get access kind of all of a sudden to just a bunch of different brands, not only the manufacturer that you initially reached out to. So instead of getting access to one brand's products, you might get access to like 10 or 15 brands, different products. So it makes it a lot easier to populate your website. The only trade-off potentially oftentimes is that your margins are not going to be as good. I've seen anywhere from 5% dealer margins through distributors all the way up to 35. So it really just depends on the company, what they're selling and what they're willing to offer their dealer network. E-bikes. Not a whole lot to comment on here. When I first got started in high ticket dropshipping, this was kind of the golden example of like what to sell in a high ticket dropshipping store. Everyone's aware of it at this point. I put it in the same category as like saunas. Everybody knows about it at this point. Everybody knows about e-bikes. They're way more common than they once were. Just think about all of the freaking websites out there that sell e-bikes and just how common they are. Even all the way up to like Dick's Sporting Goods. It's like, it's going to be an uphill battle the entire way. And so, much like these other ones, e-bikes, just juice is not worth the squeeze. Let's see. Luxury pet products. And I apologize, I have to look kind of closely. I'm looking into the light from the camera here, and so every time I look down at my notes, it's like a dark spot looking at my notes, so I have to look kind of closely. Luxury pet products, so like what comes to mind here is like kennels, like luxury kennels. This is a niche that I looked into way back when I was first getting started, and it seemed okay at the time. It seems even less okay now. I think kind of for the same reason. It's like over time, people, like, word spreads within high ticket dropshipping communities, and really surface level stuff like this just tends to get eaten up really quickly. Which is why it's important to really just think outside the box, think past just these, simple, basic, not very creative niches, if you will. So that's the next one, luxury pet products. Solar, anything to do with solar. You might be in a niche where like solar is not the main product. Just for instance, it's like generators or some type of pumps or air compressors, and it's powered by solar. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like only like your business is based on selling solar. Two reasons for this. One, it's going to be really competitive online, unimaginably competitive. Actually, there's three reasons. The second reason is, speaking from experience, the margins are not very good. Maybe someone out there has been in solar. The research I've done and through the suppliers I've worked with that do have like certain solar packages, the margins were terrible. So maybe someone else has like a different perspective on this, just because big reason is because shipping is so expensive with them. So that's a really big challenge of it. I think the biggest challenge is that more often than not, you're going to be up against like local solar companies that install these things themselves, that have their own suppliers that they probably buy from at wholesale. So more often than not, customers looking to buy just solar panels, it's going to be really hard to compete with someone that's local to them unless they're they don't have a local company, then that would make sense. But regardless, very competitive, very localized, and not very good margins. So solar, avoid it. All right, so outdoor, like yard structures, and I've got 3 examples here: greenhouses, pergolas, and sheds. All 3 of which I have sold in the past. I never actually I did sell my first sale ever on Shopify. It was amazing. I hadn't even started running ads yet, and like I connected my products to Google Merchant Center, and like 2 hours later, I had a sale for like $650 for a shed. And it turned out the only reason that I got the sale was this particular SKU was out of stock for like the last several months with the supplier that it was from. And so I was the only person that even had it listed online. And so I ended up having to refund the order anyway. But let's talk about why I would avoid these. First and foremost is just saturation, pure saturation. Second, the margins are not very good, especially like with sheds and pergolas. That like I'm talking you're netting maybe 5 to 10% at most, depending on the supplier. I would also throw like carports in here, just kind of like outdoor structures. The margins are just kind of terrible. So take it from someone that has sold these in the past. The only out of all of these, the only single thing that I ever sold was that first shed, and I ended up abandoning that niche and moving on to a different one. So just word of the wise, avoid outdoor structures. Let's see. Second to last one is golf simulators. Similar reasoning to the last, I guess, 7 that I've listed. It's very saturated. Everybody knows about golf simulators. Suppliers are kind of hard to come by. The margins are okay, I will say, but suppliers are kind of hard to come by. A lot of suppliers are starting to require like a showroom, or require that you have the capability to like help custom install these things for customers. There are suppliers. I actually had a client whose niche was golf simulators, and he bought my supplier acquisition service, so I got him suppliers. And there are still like direct manufacturers that will work with drop shippers. They're kind of few and far between. A lot of them require, if they don't require you to like have a physical location, they'll still require like a minimum initial order of like $2,500 or $5,000 or whatever the case might be, which, you know, for some businesses, if you're like well established, like that's really easy to eat that cost and then you're in the door. But if you're just getting started, it's like, Jesus, that's like almost my entire budget, so it's not really worth it at that point. So highly saturated, margins are okay, but I think anything that's highly saturated at this point, it's like your efforts are better spent elsewhere. All right, last one on all of these, and I saved the best for last just because I'm expecting my newborn daughter to come any day here, is premium baby stuff. Cribs, strollers, all that jazz. It's expensive, and I'll tell you, my Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook feeds are full of the crap right now from all sorts of different businesses. So that already tells me not only is it entirely saturated on social media, it is entirely saturated on search engines as well. You are not going to make any money in this niche. If you're spending money on ads, you will end up losing money on this. Take it from me, an expecting father who at this point has evaluated many baby products. There are too many businesses out there that are trying to sell them. So that wraps it up. That is my list of 10 niches that you should avoid like the plague in 2025. I hope that's helpful. Comment below, other video suggestions. I've had some suggestions for Google Ads, like screen sharing, and I'm trying to think of a good way to do it because the challenge is like A, giving away the store name, but even bigger is B, giving away the niche. If you're new to high ticket dropshipping, us high ticket dropshippers publicly, we're very protective of our niches that we have found success in, and obviously because we don't want them to get drowned out of the water by sharing them with the entire public. So kind of went on a tangent there, but the point still stands. Let me know what you want me to talk about in these videos in the comment below. Subscribe if you haven't. In 2025, I am doing everything in my power to upload a daily video about high ticket dropshipping. So there's lots of content to come. This model is always evolving and there's lots to report on, lots to discuss. And finally, if you are wanting to build a high ticket dropshipping business and really kind of take that next step into e-commerce, I really highly recommend checking out my program below. Like I mentioned, if you get the current price, you'll be grandfathered into the new version of the course, which is coming out later this month. And at that point, it'll be a lot more expensive. So I would get in the door now while it's much lower. I'm really excited about the content that's going to be in that program. So until next time, guys, appreciate you watching the video, and we'll see you next time.